Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Today, we're diving deeper into the concept of the water, energy, food nexus. We'll explore its significance, historical context, and the global challenges that make this approach essential. I'm joined in this episode by Nosipho Dlamini and Cuthbert Taguta. Nosipho is an agriculture engineering PhD candidate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Her research interests are water resource management, climate change, and the water energy food nexus. Cuthbert is also a PhD student at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in the School of Engineering. He is a research assistant in the areas of the WEF Nexus. His research interests lie in developing integrated solutions at the intersection of the triple bottom line, which are people, planet, and prosperity. He does this through systems thinking, nexus planning of water and energy for agriculture, as well as natural resource management and climate action. Together, we'll uncover how water, energy, and food are interconnected. We'll examine real-world examples and discuss some of the major challenges and the implementations of managing this nexus effectively. We'll also explore some strategies for sustainability and resilience. We'll chat about the technologies, policies, and the practices, and how the WEF Nexus might manifest differently in different regions. Stay tuned for all of this and so much more. Let's go. Hello, Cuthbert and Nosipho. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Nosipho, how are you?
I'm doing great, and how are you?
I'm good. Okay, so let's get things off. Nosipho, first question to you. We are talking about the WEF Nexus, but for somebody who doesn't know what it is, can you please kindly give us an explanation on what the WEF Nexus is? What does WEF even actually mean? Maybe even starting from there.
Oh, sure. Thank you for your question. So the term nexus, right? It is a Latin word or Latin term that means to connect, right? So this word really conveys the connections or the interactions between two or more elements. So when one speaks of the water, energy, and food nexus now, in short, it's called the WEF Nexus. That's where the word WEF comes from, and nexus. They're really referring to the study of connections and links among water, energy, and food resources, together with the synergies, the trade-offs, and conflicts that arise when we now manage these resources.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that introduction. So, Cuthbert, Nosipho lightly touched on it that nexus is a Latin word. So can you just give us maybe a historical overview of where this concept came and, the emergence of it? How did it all start?
Okay, so the history of the WEF Nexus, we can say it happened in 3 phases. Before the year 2011, during 2011, and then after 2011 up to now. So what happened is before 2011, there was an appreciation that resources are interconnected, but most of the focus was on two-way interactions, maybe between water and energy, maybe between food and energy, and other two-way interactions. And then there was also other approaches to integrated resource management. For example, the IWRM, which is more water-centric. And then there was also the INRM, the Integrated Natural Resource Management. Then came 2011, that was when the emphasis came more on the 3 resource sectors that they are interlinked. So there we have basically 3 major events which brought the WEF Nexus concept to the fore. We have the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report of 2011, which was published there. Basically, that one was speaking to the issue of risk correlation between water, energy, and food sectors and the need for managing them together in integration. Then there was a speech that was given by the former SG Secretary General for the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, who was emphasizing that the interconnections between water, energy, and food are very important, and they are the challenges that humankind is facing in the current time. Then the last event was in the same year, 2011, actually in November, when there was the famous Born 11 Nexus conference. In full, it was the Water, Energy, Food Security Nexus Solutions for the Green Economy. And this one was a congregation of policymakers, researchers, and other key people, and they were discussing on the current challenges and how they were going to affect future resource demand and supply, and how this was supposed to be managed in a holistic and integrated manner. So in 2011, that is when the term WEF Nexus came into limelight and when it took off. And then from there, we see that it was taken so much into research. It was taken so much into policy dialogues. It was taken so much even into practice also. So right now, if you are to check, there are a lot of dialogues going on in our region and beyond on how to embed the WEF Nexus into policy and governance of the WEF resources. And then if you are to go like online and search for literature on the WEF Nexus, today you are going to meet thousands of such literature. So 2011 was the landmark event which brought it to the fore, and now it is continuing to grow and grow every day.
Wow. Thank you so much. It really does contextualize everything. So you can almost say that it's just been a little over 10 years, because after 20 years, okay, maybe a bit more, 15, almost 15 years that, and I think in research, this is still relatively new, but the fact that there's still so much work that's already being done is pretty exciting. That means there are people who are seeing the importance of this nexus approach. So Nosipho, over to you. I'd like to know, Cuthbert touched that there were some key challenges that this approach intends to address. So maybe for you, could you speak more on what these key challenges actually are?
Well, there are many challenges really that drive the need for the WEF Nexus. I could go on all day, but I think for me, the biggest one would be population growth. You know, population growth has been a hot topic globally when it comes to research, and it is still projected to be one of those dominant topics on global discourse on resources management challenges, because it really drives demand, right? And we know that our supplies or our resources are quite finite. And to make things worse, really, we've been seeing quite a rapid growth in urban societies. We term it the rapid urban expansion. And that in itself brings challenges when it comes to resource demands, because if you compare someone who lives in urban areas and someone who lives in rural areas, those people require different resources. So coupled with population growth in itself, that drives the need for the WEF Nexus to sort of merge the gap between this exponentially growing demand and this finite supply of resources.
Cuthbert, I would like maybe to bring you in here. She touched on population growth, but for most people, a hot topic is climate change, right? Would you maybe potentially, what is that also a key challenge that this problem also intends to address?
Yes, climate change is also one of the challenges that the WEF Nexus approach is attempting to solve. Because what happens is climate change is cross-sectoral. It spans across the three sectors. It affects water, it affects energy, and it affects food at the same time. And then how do we mitigate and how do we adapt in ways that do not transfer challenges or transfer risks to the other sectors? So climate change is actually one of the issues that we are trying to solve and adapt it to using the WEF Nexus approach so that we do not end up with maladaptation. And then maybe another key challenge is of late, uh, people have been trying to link the WEF Nexus approach and sustainable development, the SDGs. The realization is there is a slow progress in achieving these SDGs. Yeah. Actually, in other countries, there is a declining trend. There was some progress before, but now we have noted some decline, maybe because of some previous events like the COVID-19 pandemic, or some of the geopolitical conflicts that are happening, which are disrupting the supply of water, energy, and food. So now the other push now is to how do we, because we know that we have 17 SDGs, and the 3 of them, they touch directly on water, energy, and food. So the question now is, how do we achieve water, energy, and security in a way that is simultaneous and that is integrated and that does not end up transferring the problems or the challenges across the sectors? So one of the pushes now is to maybe apply the water, energy, food nexus approach to accelerate achievement of the SDGs.
Interesting. And of course, the SDGs is something that a lot of countries are affected by. And I think it's so short. We have 6 years until 2030. And there's a conversation that potentially we might not meet those goals. It's maybe not even might, we will probably not. And like you rightfully said, that there is even a decline in some of these countries. So Nosipho, over to you. We touching on some of these challenges already. So what implications does this then have? That we have these issues that we can already see. So what are the implications of this challenges?
There are many implications, right? I think also going back to key challenges, I just realized one, which was land, right? Yeah. Land is a finite resource, right? So we cannot say like, let's increase the size of land because land is really just fixed. And given issues such as climate change, given issues such as population growth and urbanization and so forth, this drives a lot of competition for agriculture, because obviously if people are growing, we'd need more land for agriculture production and for industry and so forth. So that competition in itself, I think, would bring about a lot of implications in terms of meeting resources for people, even trickling down to job creations, because if we don't have space to have industries and so forth, how are people going to probably find employment and sustain their livelihoods? And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, land and competition for land.
Interesting. So Cuthbert, over to you. I'll just like us to then touch on the issues. What are, in terms of your research, maybe you could use that some of your examples, but what are some of the strategies, to build resilience? Because we need to find a way to manage this. So what are some of these strategies that our researchers like yourselves are working on to help build resilience for all of these problems that we're currently facing?
Okay, so to build the resilience, especially in this era of climate change, we need to plan in advance, and we need to develop water, energy, food systems that are robust. But now, how do we get there? One of the approaches that we use in the WEF Nexus studies or in the WEF Nexus practice is scenario planning.
Okay.
So when we plan scenarios, we are trying to imagine the future, not in a random way, but in a systematic and structured way, so that we explore and try to see what the future is going to be likely, maybe in the next 5, in the next 10, or even all the way to 2050. So when we do that, there is need for capturing as many drivers as possible that matter to us in our region. If population growth is a key driver, then we must not exclude it when we do the scenario planning, because scenario planning is there to inform us how the future may evolve and how best can we plan for it. We also come up with the strategies. So we will be having some pictures or some snapshots of the future, future resource demand, future resource supply, and the future resource budgets. And then we try, if there's going to be a deficit, then we try to see what can we do to make sure that we have a secure future in terms of water, energy, and food. It could be maybe we need to explore other energy sources that are clean so that we diversify our energy mix, or it could be we have to explore other water sources. It could be like treating wastewater so that we can unlock more resources for the society. So it's more about planning for what is coming in the future.
So can we say that this is sort of like modeling what will happen in the future?
Yes, it involves a lot of modeling, but we don't model alone as scientists, but we have to also engage the stakeholders. It could be experts, or it could be non-experts, like even community members who have knowledge of their area and who have the priorities, and who also know their challenges in the study, in the area that we are studying, or in the area that we want to put in place some interventions.
So it's a multi-stakeholder approach. It's not just one people in a silo, but it's everybody working together.
Yes, so it's like, it's even more like a transdisciplinary, because we are coming in as researchers and we are inviting experts from water, energy, food, environment, climate, and then we also have stakeholders coming in as equal partners too, because us, maybe this area, we are not more knowledgeable about it than them. So they come in with that local knowledge that they have, and then we integrate it with the expertise that we have and the scientific knowledge that we have to come up with results, or with outcomes that are more realistic for the area that we want to study, or that we want to put in place some good practices.
Understood. So Nosipho, over to you. We're touching on this whole transdisciplinary approach, bringing in various different types of stakeholders. So once these engagements are happening, right? How does policy or technology, then foster that synergy to build that resilience?
Well, for me, I think it really depends on the design of these technologies and policies and practices. If the designs stem from a sector-specific perspective, then that doesn't really foster any sort of synergies and resilience, right? I'll use an example of the Aral Sea in Uzbekistan. It's a big, not issue per se, but it's a big event or crisis that happened, as this sea was one of the largest lakes back in the 1950s, right? But majority of that water, or the water policies, really just focused on agricultural production. So water was just being pumped with the sole purpose of agricultural production. And that led to a rapid decline and drying up of the lake or of the sea. So you see, from that sort of point of view, it is quite sector specific. There wasn't really like thinking outside of agriculture production and giving back to probably environmental water requirements and so forth, just to not lead to the drying up that is the situation right now. So I think if we take on strategies or approaches that are much more integrative, then that sort of reinforces or fosters synergies and resilience. If we are to design technologies and policies and practices, we have to make sure that we don't just do it for one sole purpose, that we are able to sort of kill two birds with one stone. Like if we are to say, let's design or build a dam, what more can we get from the dam other than just harvesting water? Can we, do hydropower generation? Can we, at some points, allow farmers to extract water for irrigation? That sort of now brings in different elements and different sectors to benefit from just this one technology or practice. So yeah, I think through integration and thinking outside the box and not just having one objective really helps in strengthening and building resilience and building synergies. Yeah.
So has that been successful where with that shift, with that movement of having that type of approach, are there examples where it has been successful?
I think so because we have now learned to better manage for the future. Whenever there are these designs now for policies and so forth, we speak on climate change, we speak on the impacts that this would have on probably food and water. We think outside the box. And that has probably made us better prepared for the shock that results from climate change. We're not so unprepared now as to what do we do because we've planned already. In terms of examples, maybe Cuthbert can come in and probably share any.
Oh, okay, maybe I can give you two examples. One example is, there was a time in sub-Saharan Africa when countries wanted to achieve energy security. So they thought of, because they thought that they were losing a lot of money by importing petroleum. So they thought of producing their own fuels. So they thought of going the bioenergy way. And they were now producing these crops for biofuels, crops like sugarcane and others, including sorghum. So, you have the same piece of land, the same amount of water, and you want to use that same water for two things, for producing energy and for producing food. So the competition becomes very stiff there. It becomes stiff now. So which one do you go for? So because they were fighting for energy security, some ended up compromising and using the available resources for energy security. But at a later stage, it came back to bite them on food security.
Yeah.
Because that same land could have been used for producing food. Then we have a good example here in South Africa where, there is this ongoing revolution for renewable energy. And we have this program by the government called Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers something. It has got a lot of PPPs in front there. And if you read their reports, so far they've managed to save a lot of water by investing in renewable energy. Because now the energy that they were producing before with these thirsty power stations, now they are producing it with solar panels, which do not need those high volumes of water. So in their reports, they are quoting big water savings. They are quoting huge reductions in GHG emissions, greenhouse gases. So it's one of those solutions that create win-win situations. But one thing that we need to take caution about is such interventions need to be done on land that is not for agriculture.
Okay.
Because some of these renewable energy technologies, they need vast areas of, so like for example, solar panels. For you to build a plant that can power a large number of users, you need tracts of land. So as long as that land is not being used for other uses, such as for food production, then it's a win for everyone. Thank you.
That's an interesting thing that you said there, Cuthbert, and I don't mean to maybe put you on the spot, but Nosipo already mentioned that land is an issue that we have. So how do we decide? How do we decide if we're going to feed people or if we're going to create renewable resources? Who decides that? Because that's a very contentious topic, because that one makes you money, but like you rightfully said, if you don't feed yourself, it will come back and bite you in the butt. So how is that balance?
Okay, so that decision is not for one person. No one must make that decision. That decision must be made by everyone, because it's either we win together or we lose together somehow.
Yeah.
So we must bring everyone on board. Everyone must come to the table. We sit down and we discuss. Because when we sit down and discuss, we are going, remember, Nospo was mentioning the synergies and she was, which are the benefits, and she was mentioning the trade-offs. So when we sit down together, then everyone brings to the table their needs. Okay. Then after that, we are going to see who is going to win and who is going to lose. Once we all know that, then we come up with strategies to manage the risks for those who are going to lose. Maybe we need to import food for those who are going to lose their land to energy production, something like that. So by sitting down together, we are able to discuss and be able to see those synergies and trade-offs. But if it is one sector just thinking from their own perspective, there is that risk of bias that they will fight for their own security at the expense of other sectors and other people.
Yeah, that's where the problem comes in. Nosipo, do you want to add? I saw you agreeing to some of the points.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the whole point of the WEF Nexus really is not to solve everyone's issues, right? It's not to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. It's just there to enable us to be aware of the implications of deciding on a certain strategy. So if you decide that, okay, I'm going to put solar panels and I'm not going to do agricultural production, you are aware of the consequences that are to follow as a result of your decision. So, and that decision also relies a lot on people, on the economic status of the country. Can they afford imports for food? It really depends on a lot of things, and no one person can make that decision. I think, I was really agreeing to basically what Cuthbert was putting forth here.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for this conversation. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the listeners also learned a lot. And some of the key things that have really come across with how we started with the introduction is that it's a synergy approach. And in this last conversation, we really touched on that it's not just one thing for one person, but it involves many people to solve many things. So thank you both, Cuthbert and Nosipo, for coming onto the show and, educating us and the community of practice and everyone else who's listening. Really, really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you so much, and thank you.
Yeah. Sure. And to everybody else who's tuned in, thank you for listening into episode 2 of the WEF Nexus series project. Stay tuned for another episode coming to you soon. Goodbye.